All right, folks, we are starting off with issue 16 of Absolute Superman, and this is an awesome comic. It's going to have Hawkman and Superman going to blows for the first time in the Absolute Universe, so let's hop right into it. And this comic is going to start with Carter Hall investigating a tomb, and it goes from 1940, Sinai Peninsula, the nation of Kahndaq. This is it. This is Mark. By God, we've actually found it. The tomb of Tev Adam, undisturbed for more than 3,000 years. Unbelievable. I've never seen a vertical antechamber like this. They line the walls of this well with King Tet's most treasured possessions. And while he's here in this chamber, he's with another person as well who we don't know his name yet. But he tells him, good Lord, if I'm reading these hieroglyphics correctly, some of these items have been gifts from the gods. And so the guy he's with tells him, so the burial chamber is somewhere below us, right? And he goes, yes, but we must move carefully. Lazarus is paying us to collect, to catalog every inch of this tomb. And the person he's with says, you're right, Dr. Hall. And Lazarus pays well, but Berlin pays better. So the person who he's with is actually double crossing him and cuts his rope. And when that happens, Carter Hall starts to fall. He then reaches up and he grabs a ledge, luckily, and he's like struggling to stay up. And he says, Berlin, ah, I never took you for a fascist, Bradford, for one of those guys who like to follow the other guy with the weird mustache. And this guy Bradford tells him, I never knew how much gold the buggers had, did I? Sorry, Carter. Nothing personal. Just stay out of my way. And Carter tells him if the legends are true, the power in this tomb could change the course of the war. And there's no way I'm letting a monster like the failed art student get their hands on it. So obviously, this is taking place in our timeline, which would be around World War II. And Bradford tells him, for a man who's seen so much of the world, you're rather ignorant of its workings. The way of the world was set in stone a long time ago. War's a foregone conclusion. And just because we're fighting that guy doesn't make us the good guys. But you hang in there, Dr. Hall. And Carter starts to slip. He goes, oh my God, I'm slipping. I can't hold on. Help, help, help me. I can't. And as he's falling, he reaches out and he touches the mace of Hawkman. And the Lazarus soldiers who are standing outside of this burial chamber, they start to hear the screams and they're like, oh my God, screams and gunfire from the pit. What's going on? Get the ropes. They look down and they say, holy hell, put your hands in the air by order of the peacemaker. This dig is property of Lazarus Holdings. And Carter tells him, it's all right. I know what it looks like, boys, but trust me, I'm one of the good guys. And he comes out looking as menacingly as possible, covered in blood. The mace is covered in blood, wings fully extended, and hard pressed to believe that this is the good guy. But that's what he says. And it mirrors to right now in the Absolute Superman comic after his fight with the Lazarus Corpse in Smallville. And Hawkman and him are above the sky, and Hawkman is trying to talk to Superman, and he says, hey, you hear me, kid? I said I'm one of the good guys. So he's mirroring what he was just talking about with the Lazarus soldiers. And he said, I'm here to help, and Lord knows you need it. You can call me. And before he even is able to introduce himself, Superman takes off, whoosh, and just goes flying away. And Hawkman's like, where did that son of a, where did he go? He just left. And then Superman comes back in and tells him, hey, I'm sorry, a door fell off a plane over Cleveland. And hi, I'm Superman. I like your wings, but what were you saying? And Hawkman tells him, I said, son, that you and I, we have a lot to talk about. I've been watching you, and I've got to say, you aren't. Whoosh. Superman, again, takes off. And Hawkman's like, you got to be kidding me. Getting very annoyed at this new upstart who won't just sit down and listen to him when he's speaking. But then Superman comes back and he's like, hey, sorry, thought a guy was choking. Turns out, just a funny laugh out in Omaha. And Hawkman has kind of had enough. So he grabs Superman's arm and he's like, hey, don't do that again. So again, for me, for someone who's claiming to be one of the good guys, Carter Hall here really isn't portraying that in his actions and also in how he looks. Really menacing, really liking the all black. Kind of reminds me of a Ghost Rider fit without the chains, but still a very cool art direction. And the art in this entire comic is phenomenal. Ron Ferreira. I hope I'm not mispronouncing his name, but wow, he really knocked it out the park. It's really visceral throughout this entire comic, and you're really going to see that when we get into some of the fight sequences later. But Superman tells Hawkman, "Hey, there are people out there," and Hawkman tells him, "There's always people in trouble out there, but we're talking." And even though he comes off as kind of a jerk, he's absolutely correct. Superman can't save everyone. And even though Hawkman's motives we don't know yet, that is a very important lesson for this version of Superman to learn. He hasn't quite matured as much as the Clark Kent that we know of and the Superman that we know of in the main DC universe. And then Superman says, "Hey, is that what we're doing?" Kind of gripping his arm, like, "Okay, you say we're talking, but you're being quite aggressive." And Hawkman tells him, "I'm used to people listening when I speak." And Superman replies, "You're Grit. You're not from Earth, are you?" And Carter Hall tells him, "I was born and raised in Gotham City before the place went to hell. Wouldn't catch me there, dead there these days. But I'm Dr. Carter Hall, archaeologist, retired. But back during the war, when I was flying around busting fastest skulls, they called me the Hawkman. It's the suit that's alien, made out of something called nth metal from the planet Thanagar. Never been there myself, but you're from somewhere out there, right? You ever heard of it?" And Clark looks, or he looks shocked, like, "Whoa, how do you know that? How do you know that I'm an alien? Who told you that? Who told you I was an alien?" And Hawkman tells him, "Well, you did, kid, just now. You got a lot to learn, new guy. Come on, let's take a walk." And then from here, we cut over to the FBI, and they're taking the some stuff from Lazarus Corp. Sorry, not the FBI. They're called Gates, agents from Gates. I just see them as kind of like an FBI, CIA type of organization. So misspoke there, but they're taking something from the Lazarus, uh, I guess, warehouse. And what we cut over to is a peacemaker who's there watching them as they do this. And it says, "Looks like it's the feds who are seizing the assets. Agents from Gates. Affirmative. Even the stuff from the vault." And then we don't hear what he's being told, but he says, "Which crate? Okay, yes, I have eyes on it. A lot of armed guards. I'll need a full extracting team if you expect me to. Understand, as you wish, Lady Talia." And he says, "Lazarus means forever." And then he takes a shot, and instead of aiming at the guards, he aims at one of the containers that they're transporting out. And when he does that, some red, kind of like Twizzlers, go out and start attacking the guards, kind of giving a little bit of an idea of who this villain could be. But we'll get into that as that reveal happens a little bit later. And from there, we transition back to Hawkman and Superman as they're flying around in the air. And while they're in the air and they're flying, Hawkman tells Superman, "Despite what everyone seems to think these days, freaking out like you're the second coming, you ain't the first man who could fly. I wasn't either, and I've been at this a long time. Long enough to see twinkle-toed hotshots like you come and go." And Superman is like, "Oh, there's others with powers?" And Hawkman tells him, "Hell, there are others right now, aren't there? A bunch of you showed up all at once. You're telling me that some kind of coincidence? The big bad out east, the witch in the west from Runaway from Project Olympics, whatever the hell it was that landed on Evergreen." And Superman tells him, "I don't know who you're talking about. All I hear are the screams." So this shows that Superman has not been made aware yet of the greater uh, superhero landscape that's forming here in the Absolute Universe. But we do know that Batman and Wonder Woman have not only known about each other, but they've actually teamed up already, which is kind of cool to see kind of where they take this. And I hope that after the DCKO event, that they keep this line going. I was interested, a little off topic, in the Marvel's um, Absolute, or sorry, their new Ultimate Universe, but knowing it was going to be over in 6 months kind of killed the momentum of that whole storytelling arc they were doing, at least for me. So I hope that DC has some faith in this Absolute Universe and we can kind of get it going for a while because I think it has a lot of cool story threads that I would love to see pieced together and characters who we haven't seen yet that I would like to see this new reimagined dark side version or dark sideification of their characters. But Carter Hall goes back to Superman and he says, "Yeah, guys like you are always the same. Pop up one day, all, hey mom, look what I can do. Convince yourself you're special. unstoppable. Figure why not change the world overnight? Iron Munro, Wesley Dodds, Dr. Fate, Oliver Queen. Those names mean anything to you? No, says Superman. And Hawkman says, you know why? And Superman tells him, because I'm from space. And Hawkman says, no, because they were stupid. And all the other names that are dropped, we don't actually know what happened, but we can infer based off that last name drop of Oliver Queen. Because we found out in the Absolute Evil comic that Oliver Queen was actually killed when he was out being a superhero trying to protect Star City. So I think we get a subtle threat here from Hawkman that, hey, you don't know them because they got taken out because they decided to go up against the power structure and the way things are here in this absolute universe. And then Hawkman goes into another speech with Superman and he tells him, someone told me once the way of the world was set in stone a long time ago. And they were damn sure right. You can't change nothing overnight. You want to make a difference? You don't do it by basking in the spotlight like you've been doing. And Superman is like, who, me? And for eagle eyed readers and listeners, you'll pick up on that's what Bradford had told Carter Hall in the beginning when he betrayed him. So a little bit of allusion and alluding to what happened previously in the comic. I really like the way this is written. And he then continues, Hawkman, telling Superman, getting your picture taken all over the globe, saving a busload here, a plane full there, you think there won't be a response? And Superman is so confused, like a response to saving people? In what way is that? And Hawkman tells him, for 80 years, I've been at this. I've saved millions by now, probably billions, and not one of them knows my name because I did it the smart way. And it cuts back just this brutal shot of him back in that antechamber at Bradford as he's swinging the mace and flatlining Bradford straight into the rocks inside, or the bricks inside of that antechamber. And then we quickly transition back to Hawkman's conversation, and he says, I can show you, kid. Those others, they wouldn't listen, and I don't want to see you end up like them. You're a rookie. Best listen to the advice of somebody who's walked this beat for damn near a century. And Superman asks him, okay, so what's your advice for somebody like me to be able to help, and also not end up like Oliver Queen? And he tells him, Hawkman, for starters, you got to let go of this feud with Lazarus. You wounded them, but you can't destroy a company that powerful. There's folks won't allow it. Powerful folks. The powerful folks trying to beat Lazarus Corp is suicide. You got to learn to work with them. And Superman is obviously taken aback. He's like, work with Lazarus? The people who tortured me, brutalized my friends, who want to subjugate this planet? The people who tried to make me a mass murderer? Why would I ever? And Hawkman tells him, think, you don't understand the bigger picture here, kid. See? Wait, you're about to run off again, aren't you? Because he sees Superman kind of staring off into the distance. And he says, Superman, if you walk away from me now, after I stuck my neck out to come here, we're going to have a problem, you and me. And Superman tells him, okay, Hawkman, I won't walk away from you. And then he just flies off in a random direction away from Hawkman. And Hawkman's like, ah, you bastard. And it's like, well, he did keep his word, technically, which is the best kind of correct to be, which is technically correct. And he flew away, didn't walk away. But then we transition to Lois Lane, and behind her is the building of the Daily Planet that we all know, the giant skyscraper with the globe on top. And she's like, what the hell? This can't be right. And we hear a voice off panel that says, let me guess, you're lost. Must be looking for the Daily Planet office. And the tower, and she goes, yeah, am I crazy? Or shouldn't it be? And he tells her, oh, in the tower across the street, the one with the shiny globe on top, you're about 20 years too late. Old Planet building got turned into condos years ago. I hear they're nice. Newspaper office is on the 8th floor of this asbestos-filled rat hole. One that looks like it's about to collapse. And also good luck with the interview. And Lois is like, oh, thanks, but how'd you know I was here for an interview? And he looks at her and tells her, hey, because I've read your work, Miss Lane. A bit more Faulkner than Hemingway for my taste, especially when talking about this Superman fella. But you'll wrestle the words into shape soon enough. You've got the goods. She goes, wow, thank you, mister. He goes, White, Harry White, editor on the Planet's Metro desk for 35 years, up until about 10 minutes ago. And you know how the story goes? Get rid of the grizzled old news hound who you gotta pay a living wage so you can bring in some kid who'll work for ramen money. The Planet was a grand old gal once upon a time. Now she's the Titanic. If the Titanic was a dump with a death trap elevator. This business will break your heart, kid. Good luck, Lois Lane. And he walks away from her as she goes into her interview. Then we start to see texts from her phone pop up on the panel with Jimmy. And she's saying, oh my God, just got a job at Daily Planet. Any idea what a Metro desk editor does? Where are you at? You have your interview yet? And then we just hear, we hear screaming. And Lois says, like, what the hell? And turns around and texts Jimmy one more time. Hey, you hear a lot of screaming right now? And in the foreground, sorry, the background, you can see these tentacle-like things picking up people off the street as people are also running away trying to escape and stay safe. And while this is happening, we find out where Superman was going to. It wasn't a random direction. He was hearing something going on in Metropolis. And he tells Hawkman, as Hawkman is chasing behind him, hey, sorry about that, but there's something happening in Metropolis. And I was like, oh, wow, do you see that? It's that thing. We better get. And as he's saying that, Hawkman veers back and hits him with the Shohei Ohtani swing and sends Superman flying into a car garage, smashing through cars, and the fight is on. And Superman is confused. He's like, what the hell do you think you're doing? And Hawkman tells him, teaching you a lesson, boy, one way or the other. And Superman tells him, people down there, they need our help. Don't you hear them? And Hawkman has one of the coolest lines for a villain, even though he's technically usually not a villain in the normal DC universe. But in this Absolute universe, he's given strong villain or at least anti-hero vibes. And he says, let him scream, Superman. Let's see if you can save yourself. And Superman says, all right, you asked for this, and unleashes heat beams towards Hawkman and hits him in the air. But Hawkman, again, just dropping gems in this story. He says, yeah, and I'm still asking. He eats Superman's heat vision, no problem, comes down and whacks Superman again in the face. And then he goes, what is that? Microwave eyes? Is that the best you got? You ain't fighting peacemakers no more, champ. You're going to need more than some fancy cape to save your ass. And this is a good point because most of the fighting that Superman has done, you know, there was Ra's al Ghul a little bit going on, coming over Brainiac's mind control, but this is a young Superman. He hasn't fought the many super-powered enemies that the main DC universe Superman has fought. Like, he hasn't fought in Darkseid yet. He hasn't fought Apocalypse. No, sorry, not Apocalypse. Oh my God, I'm mixing up my streams here. That's Marvel. He hasn't fought in Lobo, right? He hasn't fought in Bizarro. He hasn't fought in a multitude of extremely strong enemies that we know him for fighting in the normal DC universe. So he still has a lot to learn. And he gets mad and starts flying towards Hawkman. And Hawkman is like, you're pathetic. I guess you figured you're so strong, you don't got to learn how to actually throw a punch. You're fast, sure, but fast and clumsy is still clumsy. Looks like you learn how to fight from watching TV. I learned from killing fascist, Viet Cong, and commie super spies. Without me, you'll be dead in a week, Superman. Now tell me the truth. You were never in a single fight before you got those powers, were you? And Superman grabs onto the mace and just crunches it down, and he goes, you're right, but I've got them now. And is looking pissed as hell. And he comes in with the right hook that sends Hawkman flying. Hawkman gets knocked through multiple buildings, down into the subway, through the concrete, because Superman is pissed. And as Hawkman is flying out, he finally sees what Superman had noticed previously. And he's like, what in the name of all that's holy is that? And Superman tells him, I told you, you either help me save Metropolis or you stay out of my way, Hawkman. This is the only fight that matters. And we find out that the creature that we saw earlier is actually Parasite, and we know that because we see the monster with the same insignia, signs, and colors Parasite, but there's also a box that says "Warning: Infectious Substance, Project Parasite" that's left on the bottom. And this then jumps over to somewhere in Missouri, small town, and it says, "This is a generous offer, and I do appreciate you coming all the way out here, but I'm afraid I just don't understand. I mean, why me? Why come all this way and make such a push for a guy who owns a small town gas station and coaches Little League football? The only game we won was because the other team had mono. You sure got that? You sure you got the right Lex Luthor?" And so we are getting introduced to absolute Lex Luthor. And it's so funny because he's talking with Brainiac, and we have Lex Luthor, who is so happy. He has a full head of hair, majestic beard. Brainiac looks more like Lex Luthor than Lex Luthor could look like Lex Luthor, which is really funny to me. And it makes me feel that DC is telling us that if you're bald, you're going to be evil. I don't support DC's statement there because my head is usually pretty bald, but I just found it funny how when Lex becomes a nice guy and a good guy, it correlates with him having a head full of beautiful hair. But if you jump back and Brainiac tells him, "Oh, yes, indeed, Mr. Luthor, you're exactly the man I need for this project. After extensive research, your name has come up as the absolute perfect candidate." He says, "But Lex Luthor, but this project, you say, it's classified. So you work for the government?" And Brainiac tells him, "I've shaken the hands of 10 presidents, 11 if you count the one who slapped me. Now I've gone into business for myself. And this project, well, all I can tell you is that the focus will be one very special individual. They call him Superman." And Lex tells him, "Sorry, I don't know who that is, and I don't really care much for the news. I'd rather be working in the yard than looking at my phone. I know there's a lot of problems out there these days, but here, well," and the just then door opens, and two kids come out and they go, "Dad, Mom says we're getting ready to cut the cake." "Yeah, Dad, you coming?" "Sure, Lena. You and Alex tell your mother. I'll be right there." And as Lex Luthor is going back into the house, Brainiac tells him, "Mr. Luthor, let me remind you that money is no object. If my offer doesn't seem fair, simply add as many zeros to it as you would like. I assure you, I will pay whatever the price is to be in the Lex Luthor business." And Lex tells him, "That's awful flattering. But," and he looks out, it's his birthday, he has all of his friends here, his family, and they say, "Lex, there he is. Come on, baby, we're all waiting." "Well, sir, the thing is, I've got everything I need right here. Hey, I'm the luckiest man in the world." And what a horrible thing to say. Lex Luthor has it all. He's calm, he's being kind, he's living his life, and the universe just wants to make Lex evil. Darkseid wants to make Lex evil, and it breaks my heart. I've never seen Lex Luthor so happy. But one thing you don't do is tell a sociopath your weakness, and that's what he did to Brainiac. And he's telling Brainiac, "Hey, I'm sorry, but I can't say yes to a job that's going to take me from my family, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to decline." And Brainiac tells him, "I see. That is most disappointing." And Lex, with a big smile on his face, with that old Southern charm, tells him, "Don't feel like you have to rush off. You're welcome to stay for a slice of cake, mister. Oh, and I'm sorry, but I don't think I ever got your name." And Brainiac says, "Oh, I won't be leaving. You're not who I thought you were, Lex Luthor. You're nothing like the man of unquenchable ambition you're meant to be. You see, I've seen beyond this universe. I've seen the Luthor who raised himself up to throttle gods with his own hands, who carved his name in blood across the stars. This pitiful, hollow shell of a version seems to lack the necessary motivation, but that's all right." And we see Brainiac start to glitch out as he turns into Monster Fuel, and he says, "My name is Brainiac, and I'm told I can be quite motivating. Let's get started." And he turns his hands into chainsaws, and he's like half metal. He's in his metallic form, looking like straight nightmare fuel. You see the kids looking up. Everyone's terrified. This is Anakin with the younglings all over again. We know how this ends, but this is where the story stops. What a phenomenal issue. The Absolute Universe and just DC in general has been dropping gem after gem, and I'm really excited. I'm going to be doing a lot of DC over these next few weeks because that's kind of where my heart's leaning right now. But if you know of some great Marvel stories that I should be checking out too, leave those in the comments. Also in the comments, leave any way that we can improve and make this channel someplace where you want to return back to. And this is Comic Lore, and thank you for listening.